Welcome to EU Decoded, your backstage pass to the political heart of Europe, brought to you by the EPP Group in the European Parliament.
Today we'll focus on Greenland's strategic significance, US ambitions, and how Europe, particularly the EU, can protect its interests. By the end of this session, you will have a clear picture of the geopolitical stakes and the tools Europe can deploy. Greenland is the world's largest island and part of the Kingdom of Denmark, with significant autonomy. Located between the Arctic and North Atlantic, it is strategically important for military bases, surveillance of Arctic shipping routes, access to rare minerals. US President Donald Trump has renewed statements about acquiring Greenland, calling it vital for US defense and not ruling out force, provoking alarm among Denmark, the EU and NATO allies. To help us understand what is at stake, we are joined by two guests, the Danish Member of the European Parliament and of the EPP Group, Mr. Niels Hansen, and the Member of the European Parliament and EP Standing Rapporteur and also Member of the EPP Group, Michał Szczerba.
Welcome.
Welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining us. Mr. Hansen, I will start with you.
Thank you.
Greenland is strategically important, also important geopolitically, military and economically. But somehow this wasn't a geopolitical issue until now. We knew that Greenland was there, we knew the significance, but it wasn't on the news like it is today. What happened? What makes Greenland so strategically important?
Well, its place in the world, of course. So the way we see it is that back in 1916, an agreement was made between Denmark, Greenland, and the US. In 1951, it was ratified. US was allowed to send troops up there, troops that they have deducted over the last decade. And in 2004, again, an agreement was made with our Danish foreign minister back then, saying that if you want to take the agreement up and discuss it again, we can do so. So that is kind of the situation with this. Historically, Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands are bound together by long-standing ties. The Commonwealth provides a strong and constructive framework for cooperation based on equality and mutual respect, and it's important that we preserve this framework. So a strong Commonwealth, a rearm of the Kingdom of Denmark, and the continued Danish engagement is therefore essential for the intersection of culture, of sovereignty, and also from a geopolitical point of view.
But why now? I mean, what happened now? Okay, we had statements of Mr. Trump, but suddenly you are all over the place, all over the media. Everybody speaks about Greenland.
Well, back in 2019, he said he wanted to buy Greenland. I think he actually used the words, basically, it's just a big real estate deal. Our prime minister went out and said that was absurd. He got angry. All these things is history. And now he's back and the rhetoric is back again. And I think this is very, very much also a matter of rhetoric. I think that he says he wants to use it for military purposes. But the fact of the matter is, he can send all the troops he wants up there. He just needs to call Nuuk and Copenhagen, and then he can do so. It's in the treaty. But most of the American voters don't know that. And maybe he soon needs a victory on his home base.
American policymakers, including President Trump, as you said, Mr. Hansen, have expressed interest in purchasing or gaining greater influence over Greenland. The strategy includes securing military presence, accessing natural resources, countering growing Chinese and Russian influence in the Arctic. Mr. Szczerba, how do U.S. defense arguments for Greenland compare to the existing strategic agreements which are already in place? And is Trump's rhetoric is maybe rooted more in security concerns, domestic policies, or has another agenda? What do you think?
It could be a mix of all you mentioned, but what I want to say after this 1 year of the current US administration, the EU-US relations is about managing uncertainty. So, and of course, the new situation, this radical shift in the US foreign policy and the domestic policy as well, it could have a great impact on our European security. But coming back to your question on Trump's rhetoric on Greenland and a threat to the EU-US relation, I want to say in the presence of my Danish colleague that the EU firmly rejects any attempt to undermine the the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland. And statements that question the sovereignty of Greenland are deeply problematic, let's say, very soft, and risk creating unnecessary tensions between close allies, the US and NATO countries here in Europe. So respect for territorial integrity and international law is a fundamental principle for the European Union and for cooperation with NATO. So any rhetoric that departs from these principles sends the wrong signal to the partners and adversaries alike.
Mr. Hansen, coming back to you, how unusual is for a US president to publicly discuss acquiring territory from an ally? How has Denmark response to Trump's statements? Is there a growing push for independence from Denmark, and does Trump's rhetoric affect that? And how is Denmark going to react to all this?
First of all, there will be a meeting as we record this podcast in the US. I think the most important priority at this stage is to kind of de-escalate the situation a little bit. Denmark is seeking to address concerns through a calm, responsible diplomacy rather than this confrontation, and to show the world that we all stand together in this situation. We've been spending a lot of our week this week here discussing Greenland also together, and I must say Denmark, Greenland and the EU are very, very much together here. On your question on the independence from Denmark, I think we should look toward as what Jens Frederik Nielsen, the Prime Minister of Greenland, said yesterday, where he stated that it's not time to discuss independence from Denmark, given the current situation in which another country is openly talking about taking over Greenland. So the discussion on independence is not right now. And I think the island of Greenland view EU and US involvement. He has to choose the cooperation, and Jens Frederik Nielsen wants to choose the cooperation between EU, NATO and Denmark, which is very, very good. And he's speaking on behalf of the Greenland people here.
Yeah. How does the general public, the people, the Danish people, look at these statements of Trump? How are they reacting?
First of all, I think that the people of Denmark, or I know the people of Denmark, are deeply annoyed and concerned by Trump's statements about the United States potentially taking control of Greenland. Danish political leaders and the media have widely described this rhetoric as unacceptable and as a clear break of these traditional alliance norms that my colleague here mentioned before. I share that view. This behavior is entirely unacceptable, especially coming from a NATO member and, I have to say, a close ally. Denmark has consistently stood shoulder by shoulder with the United States, which makes it particularly worrying when American rhetoric casts doubt on Denmark's sovereignty and integrity of the Danish Commonwealth. And I think it's also important to remember that Trump is not advocating independence for Greenland. He is talking about ownership. That decision matters, and it's deeply troubling that all allies is even considering claims over another ally's territory. That creates a serious challenge, not only for Denmark, but really for NATO as a whole.
NATO, Mr. Hansen mentioned NATO. Mr. Szczerba, what all this means for NATO, and in the unlikely possibility that the US will act military in Greenland, what will happen to the alliance and how the European Union will react?
First of all, I would like also to add to my colleague that the 1951 defense agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the US already offers some opportunities for an increased US presence in Greenland, and there is therefore no justification for unilateral or confrontational approaches. So Denmark, including Greenland, is fully covered by NATO collective security guarantees. Arctic security must be addressed collectively, not through pressure on individual allies. And you ask about NATO, but I have to tell you that in every scenario of the EU-US relation, Europe must present its strength. So also our response as the EU should be, we should respond clearly, calmly, but also firmly. So this is the most important for our Danish colleagues and also from citizens of Greenland. And we don't need escalation, but we should work with hesitation. So I hope we can clarify the situation with bilateral and multilateral talks with our US partners. But we have to also be brave enough to defend our priorities. It's about democracy, it's about international law, it's about what really the EU should stand for.
But also we have a military aspect, and we've listened the last days that at least 3 European countries, the UK, Germany and France, wants to send military forces to Greenland. Do you think that is this enough, Mr. Hansen?
Well, I think now is not the time to do it because of the conflict. But of course, right now there is the first high-level meeting on this matter. And as I said before, this has been going on since 2019. So now we have the first high-level meeting. There will definitely be more meetings on this matter. But when it's all settled, I think we, from a European point of view, should start discussing and negotiating how do we protect our northern borders as well as we protect our southern borders. And I think that is very important. But I think in the moment right now, there's no reason to escalate the situation. So when de-escalation is important, it's not now, but it will be in the future, the way I see it.
Is it Europe unified on this? I mean, we have a common voice.
At least I think that I have seen over the last few days within the EPP group that the voice is very, very common. I've been speaking to both our foreign committee members and also on group meetings with Mr. Weber, and everybody is standing full aligned with Denmark in this. And when the situation is as it is right now, it's a really, really great place to be right here and feel the protective shield that there is from our colleagues here. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yes, I just want to add that my Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, is one of those European leaders, prime ministers, who delivered a strong, clear, united stance on this. And of course, we fully support what the Kingdom of Denmark and the Greenland also is position. So, but we need to speak with one voice. We did it. We do it within the EPP group and within the EPP political family, but we need the strong voice of the European Parliament on these issues. And fortunately, right now we are working on the couples of reports, including the report on the EU-US political relations. And this issue, the issue of Greenland and this not constructive narrative coming from Washington, we want to make it even more clear with our resolution we are going to adopt soon.
You mentioned this not constructive narrative from Washington. How can we manage these U.S. ambitions, if there is a way to manage them?
Okay, if they ask, as my colleagues already told, the Kingdom of Denmark, its government, and also the Greenland, I'm sure that we are interested as NATO to have more influential presence of EU soldiers in Greenland. But this is the question. Is it a domestic issue? Is it about also some businesses? And everybody knows, our listeners also, that Greenland is a rich land, let's say, with a lot of natural resources, and many actors are not only interested to have this strong position in the Arctic region, but also to have influence how these resources, these advantages can be shared. So let's have it also in mind that this administration, I have to tell it very openly, it's not only interest, it's also about businesses, and we have to have it in mind.
Yes, and if you look towards the US and the business community there, they have been talking a long time for data centers in Greenland. They should not be cooled down. And the whole big tech companies, they want to be there as well. So I think on the business side as well is something that pushes them. But as the Jens Frederik Nielsen Führer said, if somebody wants to come and build data centers in Greenland, they're welcome.
They are more than welcome.
Yes, exactly.
So let's conclude that. Maybe we agree on these points. Greenland is now geopolitically very important. Yes, we can agree on that. That we have to, let's say, somehow manage the US ambitions carefully. Diplomacy, investment, and security measures. The EU and the European Parliament and our political group, we can play a central role in shaping this policy and to ensure that Greenland remains also aligned with the European interests. The sovereignty of Greenland is not negotiable. Yeah. And we as Europe, we have to be, let's say, more proactive and not all the time reactive, because decisions of today will shape also our policy for decades. Mr. Hansen, Mr. Szczerba, thank you very much for your insights, and thanks also to our listeners for joining us in this discussion.
And that's it for this episode of EU Decoded. Make sure to follow the EPP Group on social media, stay informed, stay engaged, and join us next time as we unpack other EU topics.